BYU and Notre Dame, not in the college football playoffs. I think that's the first thing to get to in this one. The college football playoffs was announced, and no BYU, no Notre Dame. BYU wasn't even on the graphics when the ESPN was talking about them after losing to Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. Ohio State only moves down one spot after losing to Indiana. Alabama doesn't move at all. We'll get to Alabama in a little bit, but let's start with BYU first before we dig into Notre Dame. The fact that they weren't even talked about at all. What do you think about that, Nick?
BYU was just completely disrespected through this entire process. There were so many times, leading up to the final selection day that they'd throw up Notre Dame, Miami, and who's that third team they were throwing on? It was it Bama? I think it was Bama that they were throwing up, and they just were completely they didn't even put BYU on the graphic. It was like, hey, these are teams 11, 12, and 14, by the way, or whatever it was. And they would just completely leave that out. I could not believe that. And as a fan of the Iowa State Cyclones from the Big 12, that's concerning because what does Iowa State look like if they go 11-1? Do they have to win a Big 12 title to move on into the 12-team playoff? And as far as Notre Dame goes, I just wanted to throw this point out there. I've heard a lot of people talking about, well, this is Notre Dame really getting payback for not being in a conference. If they get in a conference, look out. They're gonna light the world on fire. They're gonna make the playoffs. Well, what happened to BYU? Isn't that exactly what they did? Didn't they go from independent to the Big 12? Basically, what this is saying is just don't join the Big 12. This is a complete slap across the face for the Big 12 because the BYU Cougars, they look very good all season. They lose to one team. They didn't lose to two different teams. Yes, they have two losses. They lost to one team. I can't believe they didn't get any benefit of the doubt in this whole thing.
Yeah, and the team they lost to twice was the number 4 team in the country, according to the new college football playoff bracket that did get released. Here it is right here. This is what we're going to be looking at for the upcoming college football playoffs. As we mentioned, Alabama gets in. They're the 9 seed. They didn't move down after losing to Georgia, and they lost pretty handily against Georgia, just like BYU did against Texas Tech. Let's not say it was close games. Neither of them were, but I think you got to be consistent. If one team's going to lose mightily, you got to make the right moves. You got to move in the right direction. Alabama loses, and they still move to the 9 seed, going to Oklahoma. They're going to take down them. Oregon and JMU, and then you got Ole Miss and Tulane. You have Texas A&M and Miami. That'll be the first round. So 3 home sites for the SEC, 1 in Oregon. I like the fact that they got it right when it comes to not putting in the ACC champion, putting in JMU over Duke, because, of course, Duke was 7-5 heading into that college championship weekend. But then you can make that conversation going right back to did they get screwed over? Well, yes, Miami has the head-to-head win over Notre Dame. Don't get me wrong. That does count, and that should count. But I feel like when you headed in the championship weekend, both teams were on the couch. Notre Dame and Miami were both sitting on the couch. And before we got into the college football last selection Sunday, neither of them teams, or they get switched, I guess you could say. Miami takes over. Notre Dame gets dropped. And again, the head-to-head should matter. But it feels like the only reason they made that move is because they had to get an ACC team in. And it just seems like to me, that's just not justified.
It just, whenever the CFP committee talks, whoever it is that they have as the head, I just can't listen. It is basically, it's a bunch of rubbish. Whatever they're spewing out, it's whatever they have to say to make whatever they picked look good. They just don't have the reasoning. Even I was actually impressed Reese Davis pushed as hard as he did when it came to the whole BYU Notre Dame Miami situation. He pushed pretty hard, and the committee was pretty much like, we just did this because it's what we did. Like, you're going to have to get over it. And I thought that was absolutely ludicrous. When you look at the bracket, which game are you most excited for? Because I don't know if you want to make predictions for champions right away. I guess I'm curious how you feel about those two G6 schools in Tulane and JMU getting in is very interesting. I'm curious where your attention goes first.
Yeah, well, Tulane and Ole Miss already played this season, and it was a blowout. So, I mean, just seeing, the fact that you're going to get Ole Miss versus John Summerall, who's going to be the head coach of Florida, is going to be interesting. Let's see if, obviously, Tulane can make any type of game out of that, because that wasn't the case earlier this season. It'd be cool to see JMU make some sort of splash in Eugene. I don't feel very confident in that one. I just glad that they got, the nod, because I think it was deserved to put 2 G6s in there. I don't think the committee likes that. And I think that if each team winds up getting blown up, and blown out, that's going to be a really big problem for the future conversations this offseason. I'd probably have to point at Texas A&M and Miami for the one game of the first weekend that I'm most excited about. Do not like the time. This is the noon game on the Saturday. This one should be the primetime game. Both of the G6 teams follow, so I think it's bad timing and bad decisions by the schedule makers. But I think out of the four teams, the four games, I should say, that is the one I'm most excited about. Texas A&M offensive coordinator Colin Klein about the head coach at Kansas State. Miami, obviously, they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. Everybody says they shouldn't deserve to be there, and they're going to be in that one. And Texas A&M, you got to remember, they were seen as a first-round bye team until they lost their only game of the season against Texas. So I do think that one's going to be the most exciting game. Speaking of this entire postseason play, we talk about Notre Dame, the fact that they didn't make it in there. Now they're not going to be in a bowl game either. They decided to step out. These two teams were supposed to take on each other in the Pop-Tart Bowl, which is the coolest bowl, might I add. They added 6 dancing Pop-Tarts this year. So, I mean,
they've got teams this year.
This was absolutely the year.
They had Team Sprinkles and Swirls or whatever it was. The Pop-Tarts Bowl is doing bowls right. And I actually just talked about this today. I think it was that this aired. Notre Dame leaving the bowl situation is not the same as a few other teams that are saying, no, we don't actually invite or to accept this invitation. Teams like Kansas State and Iowa State, new head coaches, and for Iowa State specifically, gutted because your head coach went to a different program. You have basically no coaching staff left. All the players are going to leave, and Iowa State was extremely injured. Kansas State, new head coach is going to be turnover. Like, I get it. Notre Dame, literally just salty they didn't get into the playoffs. I could not believe. I was literally shocked that they were like, oh, we're not going to get in? Well, then what's the point of even playing these bowl games? I think this sets a horrible precedent for what the college football playoff and those who are just snubbed looks like for the next few years. I don't think this was the right play at all. I am shocked that they're allowed to do this. And then you look at next season and what Notre Dame has done and the MOU to be able to get in if they're in the top 12. Like, the whole thing with Notre Dame right now is it just feels wrong, man. I don't know. Like, it just feels like everything about this is almost like pick me. I hate it.
Yeah, they made a statement that came out yesterday on Sunday. It says, as a team, we decided to withdraw our names from consideration for a bowl game following the 2025 season. We appreciate all the support from our family and fans, and we're hoping to bring the 12th national title to South Bend in 2026. I feel like this was definitely a push for leverage in the offseason when talking about, obviously, college football playoff expansion and whatnot. Of course, this begs the question and asks the question, what is Notre Dame's relationship with the ACC going to do? The ACC was completely against Notre Dame going in. They were obviously rooting against them to get Miami into the fold. Of course, Notre Dame is not in the ACC conference, but they have a very close relationship with them being an independent team, and you always see them playing each other. Wonder if that changes over the next couple of years. And then it makes you wonder, does Notre Dame think about joining an actual conference? Did you actually make that decision? But you mentioned it earlier, BYU going in the Big 12 and having, an 11-1 record heading into championship weekend still gets them left out of the mix.